everyone, so today we're making a carrot cake with walnuts inside, and it has a cream cheese filling and then Swiss meringue icing, decorated all Eastery, ready for Easter, and it's all completely gluten-free and dairy-free as well, or how I made it was. So I'm starting with the carrot. So you want about 265 grams worth of carrot. I'm just kind of measuring it out and then peeling it and grating it. So yeah, about 265 grams of carrot is what I would grated carrot to start with. So I'm just going to grate that carrot down. About one, this is a really large carrot, but one large carrot, about two usual sized carrots. This is my favourite carrot cake. I make it quite often. It's super moist and delicious, and it tastes super similar to the Costa carrot cake if you've ever had that. When I could eat normally, I used to have that, and it was really delicious, and it tastes really similar. So once I'm finished with that, I'm popping that into the jug, and then I'm going to get my orange. I'm going to wash my orange and zest about half an orange. If you have a zester, that's probably better to use, but I just use a grater again. Try not to get too much of the white of the orange because that is more bitter. So that's straight into the jug as well. Then I'm going to measure that out, so I'm going to pour that into my jug so that I can measure out the liquid ingredients. So I'm just popping that out, and then I'm going to start measuring the liquid ingredients. So I'm going to start with oil. I'm using sunflower oil here, but you could use any kind of non-flavourful oil. So vegetable oil would work really well as well. And it's 230 ml of oil. Like I said, I'm using sunflower oil. And then I'm going to measure out my eggs. So you're going to want 4 eggs. These are just medium-sized eggs. Again, I'm just popping that straight into the jug so that I've got less mess. For the rest of the pans and pots as well. So then I'm going to add in about a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons worth of vanilla essence. Take liberty with how much vanilla you'd like. And then I'm just popping my jug onto the weighing scales, and then lastly I've got plain yogurt. You can use plain or Greek style yogurt. I'm using the Outpro plain yogurt, and I'm using about 100 grams worth of that. So once I've got that all measured out, I'm going to pop all my carrot and orange zest back into the jug, and then I'm going to mix all my wet ingredients up in that jug, and then I'll pop that aside and move on to the dry ingredients. I don't add raisins to my carrot cake or sultanas because I don't particularly like them, but you definitely could add them in, and if you were going to add them in, I'd probably suggest about 100 grams of them. I just use walnuts, and again, I use 100 grams of walnuts. But if you don't like walnuts, don't add walnuts. It could also be really nice with like maybe some coconut going through it, something like that, if you wanted to change it up a bit. So anyway, that's all measured out now. So now I'm going to move on to my dry ingredients. So firstly, I have my flour. I'm using 265 grams of self-raising flour, and the gluten-free Dove's Farm flour is what I'm using. Then I'm adding in just a few pinches of salt, just to balance it out. Then some xanthan gum, about a teaspoon worth, half a teaspoon worth. Again, I use the Dove's Farm one for that. Then I'm doing golden caster sugar. Usually for carrot cake you probably would use light muscovado sugar. I didn't have any, so I'm using golden caster sugar. About 335 grams of whatever sugar you want to use. One that's on the browner, kind of like the light brown side, is pretty good. So like light muscovado is good, and golden caster sugar tasted really good too. So whatever you have. I was running out of this as well, so I was really using the scraps left of this sugar, trying to get it all out of the bag. And then the last of the dry ingredients are the spices. So I like to use cinnamon and nutmeg. Again, you could use whichever ones you want really. So I use about 2 teaspoons worth of cinnamon and about 1 teaspoon worth of nutmeg into. That is what I put into this. If you have freshly ground nutmeg, that's probably better, but I didn't, so I'm just using what I have. I have just normal nutmeg today, already ground. And there goes in my cinnamon. Smells really good, super delicious. So I'm going to pop that into my KitchenAid mixer now, or you could just use your hand mixer, or you could just mix it up with a spoon at this point, to be honest. And then I'm just going to give it a quick mix. So once that's mixed through, I want to add in my wet ingredients that we made in the jug earlier. So I'm going to pour the jug full of the oil, the yogurt, the egg, the vanilla, and the orange zest and the carrot, and pour that all into the wet ingredients now. And then we have pretty much all the cake batter together, minus the nuts. So I need to add in the nuts as well. And at this stage is when you would add in your raisins as well, if you wanted to add in raisins. So here I think I'm just measuring out my 100 grams of walnuts. I've got pre-chopped walnuts, plus in the stand mixer they'll break up a little bit more as well. But if you have normal walnuts, you can just chop them down, or what's easier is to put them into a Ziploc bag, grab out a rolling pin and go to town on them. You could use other nuts too, like pecans, something along those lines would be good as well. So now we're just mixing that through. You would want to preheat your oven around now or a little bit earlier to 180 normal and 160 C for a fan oven. So once that's all mixed through, I have some small pans that I got from Tesco. How many inches are they? I think they're 6 inches across, or is it 3? They're very small. You'll see them in a second. They're pretty much the smallest pan you could get in Tesco's. Anyway, I saw those and I thought, which was what gave me the idea, I wanted to do a mini cake with carrot cake. So I do 3 layers, and I'm just wiping some oil around them firstly. But yeah, they're very small, as you can see right here. And I'm just going to pour my batter into it. I actually only bought 2, so I make the first 2, and then I use one of those pans I've already used to make the 3rd layer. But they were only, I think, £3, so you could probably just buy 3 and it would make your life a bit easier. So I'm just filling these up. I fill them up pretty much to the brim because there's enough batter to do that. And if you wanted to do a normal size cake, you definitely could do a normal size cake and just do 2 layers, which I've done before with this. Usually I would divide it between 2 normal size tins, but this time I wanted to do 3 and do a mini cake and have it nice and tall in terms of the stack. Just because, you know, it gives you a little bit of a different vibe when you're decorating it. So I'm going to pop those 2 into the oven. I would recommend putting them onto a tray and then into the oven so that you don't accidentally push the springform up when you take them out of the oven, which I've done in the past. So these are them coming out of the oven. They're still quite warm at this point, as you'll be able to see by me using my jumper to get them out. But I needed the pan so that I could put the 3rd one into the oven. So I'm taking them out whilst warm, but you'd probably want to let them cool a bit rather than doing this, but they came out just fine. I use a sharper knife to get the bottom off. As you see, it came out off quite easily. It was oiled anyway, and it's a brand new pan, so it tends to come out quite easily. Then I'm just going to do the same for the other one. But first I'm going to pour that batter into the previous pot just so that I can get that straight into the oven so that I have my 3 layers like intended. I do actually end up popping these in the freezer overnight before I decorate them, so to be fair I could have waited a minute and let them cool off in the end, but I wasn't sure when I was going to decorate them, so I wanted to make sure I had them all out and cooling, so obviously this needed to be cooked first. But as you can see, plenty of batter to do 3 good sized tiers in these little pans. So I pop that back into the oven and then take this one out of its tray as well. Then after that, once they've cooled down a little bit more, I'm just going to use a sharp knife to take the tops off. It's pretty easy because I can see where the top of the pan mark is on the cake, so I just cut around that point and cut them off from there. That way I have nice flat layers. It's ideal to have a sharp knife for this though, especially with carrot cake, because it's a little bit more crumbly than normal cake because of all the pieces. But as you can see, it goes quite easily, to be fair, and it's perfectly fine there. And then I just do the exact same thing for the other one. taking off the top layer. And then you have cake scraps too, which are great for snacking on whilst making your cake, decorating it. And for anyone watching that can smell it, because it does smell absolutely delicious, like carrot cake always seems to. So then I'm just going to cling film these. Initially I only put them in the fridge, but I did eventually cling film them on their own, and then pop them in the freezer with the third one, like I say, overnight, just so that when I do come to decorating they're quite hard. But that does also mean I run into a problem decorating, which you'll see in a minute. But initially here I'm just cling filming them and popping them in the fridge. They are completely cooled at this point. So I do then make a cream cheese filling, but I forgot to film that. But basically it's about 75 grams of dairy-free cream cheese with 100 grams icing sugar and one 250ml carton of the dairy-free cream, and that's what I do. But here I'm making my Swiss meringue icing. So I first of all heat up my egg whites with my sugar, and I heat that up till it gets to 165 Fahrenheit, and then I whip it up in my KitchenAid. I used to use a hand mixer and it would take forever, but the KitchenAid whips it up a lot easier and quicker until it comes down to about room temperature and it has stiff peaks. Then at that point I add in a tablespoon of butter one at a time. So the recipe for that, let me just grab it up in case you want to try it, is 5 egg whites, 452 grams butter, 300 grams of granulated sugar, a pinch of salt and a teaspoon of vanilla. But I'm pretty sure for this recipe I 1.5'd it, so I did 7 or 8 egg whites, about, let's say 675 grams of butter, 450 grams of granulated sugar, and a bit of salt and vanilla. And so here I'm just making that. This I found is the best icing, dairy-free icing, in terms of if you want to ice a cake and it look really pristine. I'm not by no means like a professional and it doesn't look perfect, but the other icings I've used, they tend to not take up the colour so well. Like they'll separate from the icing colours, they'll kind of curdle sometimes. I've run into a lot of problems with dairy-free icing and frosting, and this is the best one I've found in terms of it not completely like going like that. Like you can leave this out at room temperature and it won't melt very easily. You probably want to keep it in the fridge though. I do keep it in the fridge in general, but if you do leave it out, you're not going to run into too many problems, and it really keeps well. But I do make sure I use the Stork dairy-free blocks of butter, because I find that works the best with this. It just makes it really thick and really easy to pipe. You probably want to leave your butter out for a little while before you go into making this, just so that it's not super cold, otherwise you can curdle it. I've only ever curdled it once, but it was a nightmare and I couldn't save it. So you really want to avoid that. So it does take a good while of mixing, but I'll cut to the kind of finished product where it's kind of finishing off. So here you can see it's kind of all come together now. It's nice and thick. It just kind of happens really instantly. It turns into this, and this is at a point where I can now pipe with it and it's going to work really well. As you can see, it's really thick and it holds its shape, so that's perfect. So then I just kind of put that into a piping bag, and then I have my filling that I made before. I'm just making this onto a simple plate. These are my frozen layers of cake. They've kind of defrosted a little bit. I've left them at the freezer for a little while at this point. and I'm just going to pipe a line around the edge to keep the icing, the frosting, not frosting, the filling in, the cream cheese filling that I've made. And then I'm going to pop the filling in. I had vanilla bean paste in this filling as well, and it's really delicious. It was really good. I don't think you can have carrot cake without the cream cheese filling, or just cream cheese in general. It's so good. So that's my filling. And I decided to pipe an extra line around just to be safe on it, which I am glad I did. And then I pop on my next layer of cake. I'm just going to repeat the same process basically of doing the flood line around, popping in the cream cheese filling, and then putting the next layer of cake on top. So I'm doing 2 lines of the Swiss meringue icing frosting around the outside to keep it nice and secure in there, and I'm doing about 2 tablespoons worth of the filling. It is quite a thick filling, so it's not going to drip through necessarily, but just better safe than sorry in terms of it flying out. And because of the mistake I'm about to make in a minute, you'll see why I'm very grateful that I did do the 2 lines, because otherwise I could have had a bit of an issue. But luckily there wasn't much of one because I had the 2 lines there. So I'm just popping on the last layer right now of cake. And this little turntable I've got my plate on top of, I just got from Amazon, and it's really good. If you're looking for one, it was nice and cheap, but it works well. Like I say, I'm definitely not a professional. So there it is, looking all nice, and then I get a cake dowel to stop it falling, and it was too frozen in the middle, and then it squashed all my icing out, which is why I was very lucky I did 2 layers, because it was salvageable, and I just kind of pushed it all back in. So it wasn't the end of the world by any means. But at this point I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? But as you can see, it's not too much of a problem. I just kind of push it all back in. And I'm going to ice around the edge anyway, so it's not noticeable at all by the end. So next I'm going to pipe on my icing to actually fully ice it with. So I'm going with a white kind of base. So here you might notice it looks slightly lighter, slightly different. It's because I've added a little bit of purple to it to make it a bit more white. And I'm going with a white base, and then I'm using blue, mostly blues, to do the kind of nice frills around the cake. I'm also using white to do some of the frills around the cake. And then I also do some pink flowers, some greenery, and lots of carrots around the outside too, and on the top. Now most of this actually I didn't realise, but my camera cut out, So I don't have it filmed very much of me actually decorating it. This is kind of it. But like I said, I'm not a professional by any means. I kind of just take my hand at it and have a go at it. I've done this style cake a couple of times, so it's more of a practice thing, and it still doesn't turn out perfect, but I really like the finished product anyway. But this is a super delicious cake, even if you're just going to make the cake and just do a bit of simple cream cheese icing. It's definitely worth it, especially for Easter time, because it's super Eastery. So I'm just using my what's the word? My spatula. I can't think of the name for the thing I'm thinking of, but it's like indented so that it's kind of easier to maneuver around the cake. So here I am just kind of flattening it around, and this is a finished product. So like I say, some pink flowers, some carrots, some blue icing, that's the top, and then I've got, like I say, bits around the edge. This is me cutting into it. I also have a fail in terms of a cake slice cut because I kind of broke it as I pulled it out. Because it's quite a small cake, it's quite easy to do. So the cake slice isn't the perfect first cake slice into a cake either, but that's okay because it tastes the same, and that's what really matters. But here's a video of me trying to do a good cake slice before I crumble it everywhere. So this is the signature moment. That should look perfect, but you can see it didn't, but that's okay. I just scraped the rest out. And then, it's quite funny. But here's it once I've kind of cut out another layer. Another slice. So I hope you enjoy, and please let me know if you try it, which I hope you do, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.